Okay, you've taken some stick with the challenges for last year. A lot of people would say that's unfair, but you got these hardcore boxing fans on the forum saying, "Oh, he's fighting another bum," and that's. Is there a danger with Krasniki that even though people within boxing know how tough he is, that maybe some of the public will think, Krasniki, who's that?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's the kind of reaction you get, because they hear the name Krasniki and not Hopkins or Trevoris Cloud or Chad Dawson. They automatically assume these fighters are bums. Were they not? These are good fighters. They work hard, they train, and they're hungry. And a hungry fighters are dangerous fighters, and they're going to give it everything for a world title shot. And Krasniki's mandatory challenger. He's got himself into position. 41 fights, only losing 2. He's 25 years of age. Same as me. This is going to be a top class fight, a real exciting fight. I feel, and just because he's not one of those big names, as you mentioned, people automatically they become cynical. But that's just how fickle some fans are. So it's a pity.
How frustrating has it been for you when you've taken this criticism when really the opponents are out of your hands? If it was just down to you, you'd go and get a fight with Hopkins or whatever. I mean, how frustrating is it? It must be terribly frustrating when there's not a lot you can do about it.
Well, in all honesty, I deal with the criticism quite well, because I don't really get involved in any of the forums or anything. I just get on with my business and concentrate on my fights and training and just enjoying myself and winning. Enjoying being world champion. And I'm just fighting whoever's being matched up for me. I don't get involved in that, and I've got the mentality of keep winning these fights, and the big fights are going to happen. It's obviously could get impatient and want to rush towards these fights, but I'm still only 25 years of age, and just I've got a bit more experience now on the world scene. I've had these last couple of fights which have been comfortable for me, a bit more experience, and I'm sure these big fights are going to happen. As 25 years of age is a long time left in this sport, and once that first big fight happens and you win that, every fight after that is a big fight then. So that's what we've got to be ready for.
Yeah, I mean, you just mentioned there your age, you're 25. It's almost if people forget that. It's not that long ago, you were at university and this sort of thing, and you then won the world title. Are you kind of where, I mean, say if you go back 5 years' time and you'd say, right, in 5 years' time you'll be WBO champion, you'll have a few defences under your belt, would you be happy with that?
In 5 years' time.
No, sorry, 5 years ago, someone
Yep.
said where you are now. Would
Yeah.
you be happy?
Oh yeah. I'd grab it with both hands. Ultimately, it's definitely because boxing's a tough sport, and I know every fight can be tough because they give it everything, especially when you hold the world title. Every challenger is going to train and give it 110%. It's their ultimate goal, and it's the only chance they'll probably ever get in their career sometimes. So they're going to make it tough for you. And like, the opponents I fought you take the people I've beat. You've got Danny McIntosh, who fought Bellew not long ago. I smashed him when I was 22 years of age, and Karo Murat was meant to fight Trevoris Cloud recently, and I beat him when I was 23. Kozimski have recently fought Jean Pascal, and I knocked him out in 5 rounds when I was 24 years of age. So the guys who they criticise me for are fighting these other guys, but yet they just jumping on the bandwagon and being cynical with my opponents. So just look at the fighters who they're being matched up against once I beat them, and I'm still 25. So, but at the end of the day, the most important thing for me is just keep winning, and eventually I'll prove I'm number one, because the unification fights are going to happen in the next year or two.
You mentioned Tony Bellew there, an old rival who you beat and deserved to beat. I mean, he seems to be going down the WBC route now. But do you feel there's some kind of unfinished business? Because I mean, Bellew's quite open in the fact that he wanted a rematch in the past. Do you feel there's unfinished business there, or are you just happy just to move on?
I'm ready to fight that fight. I'm generally hoping that Tony, he's gone the WBC route, and I really hope he wins it. I mean that. I hope he wins it, because I think that fight I'm going to still be world champion. I think that could be a massive unification fight. It's going to be tough, but I think he can potentially win the WBC, and that fight will be huge. And it's a fight I want, because it's a fight I know I can win, and it's going to be it would make a great event. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, one final question. I don't know if you saw this week's boxing news, but we did a Joe Calzaghe versus various people. We're going back to Calzaghe. We put him against you. But Calzaghe had you can draw parallels with his early championship days, in that he was fighting guys that people didn't know, and this, that. Do you still draw inspiration from Joe?
A lot, yeah. I got an awful lot of respect for Joe, because I can understand and relate to him now, of what it was like, because he had 20 defences of his WBO, and he got a lot of stick, Joe, in his early days, for the opponents. But still, you've got to be on your game for these fights. You can't unprepare for these fights, because you will come unstuck, and regardless whether they're a massive name or not, they can still fight, and they're still capable. And it took Joe a long time, a lot of frustrating years for him, and like his career, he kind of took the stick, got through these fights, and when he got matched against those top guys, he won. So, I got a lot of respect for Joe, as a fighter and as a person for dealing with it, and the way he went about his business was quality.
That's brilliant. One last question. I mean, I seem to remember seeing something on the internet last year about ultimately you'd like to be at heavyweight. Is light heavyweight still the division for you? Is that going to be in the long-term future, light heavyweight, or are you looking at moving up in weight?
Eventually, yeah. Perhaps I will move up, but light heavyweight is obviously a division for me at the moment, and it's trying not to look too far ahead, because my ambition now is to unify the light heavyweight division, push as close to that #1 spot as I can. So my immediate future is definitely in this division. Last year I contemplated going back down to super middle, because I felt I could still make that weight. But we'll stay at light heavy, and who knows, in the future, if 25 now, so I'm obviously maybe going to fill out a bit more, and cruiserweight's always an option in the future, but light heavy is definitely all I'm looking at the minute.
Brilliant, Nathan. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for doing it.
Get involved with all the best boxing banter at our forum, and that's forum.boxingnewsonline.net.